Hi everybody, and welcome to the Fireworks button tutorial. This tutorial is designed fittingly enough to show you how to make a simple button with a mouse over effect in Fireworks. This button that we make could then be saved and exported to Dreamweaver as its own button, or copied from the document library and pasted into any other Fireworks document in case you're doing your web layout there. So I've already got Fireworks up on my screen, and the first thing that I am going to do is go to Create New. I'm going to keep the default measurements that it offers me here. We have 400 pixels wide by 300 pixels high, but basically anything that's larger than the button that you're trying to create will be sufficient. I'm going to keep the transparent canvas color, although really at the end of the day that won't matter because we're going to be cutting away the rest of the canvas that is not part of the button. So I'm going to click OK. And you'll see here that it gives us our canvas and that all of our familiar tool panels are around the sides. Here's our toolbar over on the left hand side, our best friend the properties inspector down here, and then over here our standard layers panel. And then down here we have our document library, and this is where our button will appear after we've created it. Now when you're making a new button in Fireworks, you do not really have to draw it out and go through too much trouble before you define it as a button, because Fireworks has a button option. So the first thing we're going to do is come up here to our menu, and there's the edit. Go to edit, insert, and then new button. And now before I click that, you'll see right now we are just in page 1 viewing. When I go to edit, insert, new button, you'll see that now we are viewing the button, and we can toggle back to page 1 if we want. Now we don't want to do that yet because we haven't finished making our button. The first thing I'm going to do is come over here to the rectangle tool, grab my rectangle tool, and I'm just going to draw out a rectangle like so. And I'm going to center it using my selection tool and follow my grid guides. Now ideally, before you start this process, you have done your math with your website layout and figured out how long across, how wide your website will be, and then how many buttons you're going to have, and do the math and figure out what each of your buttons needs to be or can be before you start this process. But for the sake of the demonstration, we're just going to make one that is 175 pixels wide. So I'm going to highlight my rectangle and come down here to width and go with 175, and we'll say 50 pixels high. Just do nice round numbers for that. And then I'll come back up here to my pointer tool and just recenter it, make sure that it looks nice in there. And I'm going to change the color for the sake of this demonstration. Pop down here, and we'll make it a pretty dark color for now. And we'll give it a black outline to help with the visibility a little. And there you go. Now we're also, just for the sake of demonstration, going to round off our corners. And you'll see that down here we have corner roundness. Very nice. If we click this little triangle, you'll see a slider. You can also do it by typing numbers in right here. And I'm just going to go with something a little more extreme than maybe I normally would, but we'll go with 50 pixels. 50 pixel roundness, you can see a visible rounding of the edges, making it a little more like an oblong sort of deal instead of a straight rectangle. So now, let's add some text. To add text, I'm going to come back to my vector toolbar, and I'm going to grab my text tool. I'm just going to plop that right here, and I will type out my text. We'll go with home page. And I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to center it on my button. Now when you're making your own buttons for your website, make sure that you use the largest chunk of text first. You can always add shorter text inside, but if it's short now and then I have one, say, that's longer than homepage, I run the risk of having it run over my button, and that's going to start making problems when you're doing your web layout before you export it. Down here you'll see that I have centered my text inside the text box. That means any text I change will also be centered and will allow me to keep that kind of proportion going in relationship to the rest of the rectangle. And just to make it a little more viewable, I'm going to add kind of a dark outline. make the letters a little bit sharper. This is really more for the over effect, as you'll see momentarily. So that's our first button. Now, I mentioned before that we're going to give this an over effect, so let's get to that. This is the up state. This is what your button would look like if somebody were to just kind of go to your website and take a look at it. This is what they'd see. What we're going to do now is add an over state, which is what happens when somebody takes their mouse and passes over the button. To do that, make sure you have nothing selected. You'll see over here in my layers panel that I do not have, say, rectangle selected. Just click on the canvas to get rid of that. And drop down to the Properties Inspector. At the Properties Inspector, you'll see that it displays our current state, which is up, and a drop-down menu that will allow us to pick other states. As you can see, there are a bunch to choose from, but we're going to go with over. Now, this is the state that will appear when someone takes their mouse and, again, passes over your button. Now, you'll see that we are in a new editor, and it looks like everything that we've done before is gone. But it's not really lost, it's just hiding. So we're going to bring that out of hiding by coming down to the Properties Inspector. You'll see that we're still in the over state. And here's a new handy button, Copy Up Graphic. If you click on that, you'll see that your work comes from the up state to the over state, and it's not gone, as you can see by toggling back to up. There's over, up, over. Both look the same. Now make sure you're in the over state, and we're going to make some changes to this to give our over state a little more personality. First, I'm going to select my rectangle, and I'm going to change my rectangle fill to something lighter. Now, this is a little more garish than you may wish to go on your actual website, but as far as the skill demonstration is concerned, we want something with a pretty significant difference, just to illustrate how this functions. I'm going to leave my text the same because I've got that dark outline around it already, so it should still remain pretty readable. And now you can see, again, if you go to the over state and change it to up, that's what it will look like on the page. Over, that's what it will look like when somebody mouses over it. From here, we can now go back to page 1. And you'll see now our button appears on our canvas, and we also, as you may have noticed when we were making it, have our button asset in our document library. And now from here, we could, say, make another button by clicking and dragging, and just drop that on the canvas, and then position it appropriately. So let's take this first one we made and click and drag that up to, say, here. And we'll take this other one and we'll click and drag up until it's in the same approximate location, and we'll let that go there. Now, this weird green film over it is from the web layer. You can see this is still what they look like. The web layer is what will allow our rollover behavior to happen. And now, to test it out. So we've got our two things on the canvas. I'm going to go and hit F12, which will publish this out as a preview. You can see this is what it would look like on the internet. And if I mouse over our first one, there we go. And the second one, just like that. So from here, we can, here, I'll get rid of this one because we only want the one copy of it for now. From here, we can just kind of put this wherever, click outside of everything, go to Fit Canvas, and you'll see it just snaps right to that button, making it easy to select. You could copy this and paste it into another document. You could save it, you could export it, and it has all sorts of uses now as a button for your website. I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and please, if you have any recommendations as to what could be made better or other tutorials you'd like to see, please do let me know. Thanks a lot, and have a great day.